Here.
Mr. Volnick.
Here.
Councilman Hellinger.
Here.
Vice
Here.
Chairman Simpson.
Here. Okay, item number 2, the approval of the motion summary of the Planning Commission meeting held on April 5th, 2017, as recorded and transcribed. What is the wish of the commission?
Move for approval.
Motion by Mr. Kroll,
Second.
second by Mr. Mantzoros.
Mr. Badger.
Yes.
Mr. Halter.
Yes.
Mr. Pearl.
Yes.
Mr. Volnick.
Yes.
Councilman Hellinger.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Mansoros.
Yes.
Chairman Simpson.
Yes. Okay, item number 3, regular business. Could the clerk please read item A into the record?
Item A, Coglin's Crossing, number 1, 2017-0689. A request by Delaware Development Plan LTD for approval of a final development plan for Coglin's Crossing Phase 1 infrastructure encompassing approximately 77.102 acres zoned A1 PMU, agricultural district with a planned mixed-use overlay district, and located east of US 23, west of Stratford Road, and north of Meeker Way. Item 2, 2017-0691, a request by Delaware Development Plan LTD for approval of a final subdivision plat for Coglin's Crossing encompassing approximately 77.102 acres zoned A1 PMU, agricultural district with a planned mixed-use overlay district and located east of US 23, west of Stratford Road, and north of Meeker Way. Item 3, 2017-0692, a request by Delaware Development Plan LTD for approval of a street vacation of Stratford Drive for Coglin's Crossing encompassing approximately 77.102 acres zoned A1 PMU agricultural district with a planned mixed-use overlay district and located east of US 23, west of Stratford Road, and north of Meeker Way.
Yes. The site is zoned A1 PMU. It's actually been all annexed into the city. Last time we were here, they were still in the process of getting annexed. It's been all annexed A1 PMU. Here's the aerial of the site. Notice the subdivision to the northwest that's up there. That's going to come into play in this discussion. Last November, Planning Commission and Council approved the rezoning, conditional use permit, amendment to comprehensive plan, preliminary development plan, and preliminary subdivision plat. This is the development plan that was approved. Now the applicant is proposing to move forward with the final development plan for infrastructure, a final subdivision plat, and a street vacation to subdivide the property into the developer lots and also vacate Stratford Road. The final development plan would be to allow the construction of the public spine road, the main trunk utilities, including stormwater basins, the bike path, the northern landscape buffer adjacent to Elliott subdivision. Again, the zoning is A1 PMU, and this will require, these 3 activities that I discussed require Planning Commission and City Council approval. The engineering drawings are currently being reviewed by the engineering department. The utilities that have to meet, any new or existing utilities that would be extended and constructed would have to meet our minimum requirements, specifically the proposed public sanitary line running north and south across the property needs to be upsized to serve its full tributary area and shall be extended to the northern property line. As I indicated earlier, the first action needs to be the street vacation. This exhibit in front of you is the final subdivision plat and street vacation. The parcels outlined in yellow are actually 8 developable parcels that they're proposing on this site. And the ones outlined in blue are the 4 reserve areas that will be on the site. The Spine Road, which extends from Meeker Way north to 23, is outlined in brown. In the northwest portion of the site, you see a road that's outlined, hatched and outlined in red. That's Stratford Drive. That needs to be vacated per our code. There's actually 8 lots off that, 8 subdivision lots and 2 large parcels, that were formerly county parcels that access that site. they purchased the entire subdivision, all the property around it. And they're actually going to take all those houses down, raise all those houses. Because the property owner bought all the houses, once the vacation is approved, all the land will be dedicated to them. It usually goes to adjacent owners. They purchase the entire site. So it's pretty much a formality, but it has to go through that process of actually vacating the street. The subdivision of lots, as I indicated, would be 8 developable lots from the existing 15. 4 would be reserve areas, and with the extension of the public street, that public spine road. And that's the only public road that would be within the development. The developable lots range from about 2.7 acres to almost 11.5 acres. And all the lots that have frontage either on 20 or the new public spine road, and that would meet our minimum zoning requirements in the approved development text. The reserve areas range from a ½ acre to almost 3.66 acres. There'd be the 2 reserve areas on Stratford Road would be actually retention basins. The one on US 23 would be a detention pond, and the one just south of Meeker Way is actually a remnant of the Meeker Way construction out there. The parcel 1, which is in the northwest portion of the site that fronts 23, is adjacent to Chesround Chevrolet. And a condition of the Chesround approval several years ago required that they could access this site and connect to the spine road. So a condition on the final plat has to give Chesround property access to the spine road US 23, and it shall be delineated, executed, and recorded. A note on this exhibit is required, and in the final development plan for lot 1 is when that would occur. And then Chesround would have to sign off on that, or the owner of the property to the north. Again, the road would be the public spine road through the site from Meeker Way. There'd be 2 access points to US 23. The northernmost would be a traffic signal at the existing Wendy's location. And just south of that would be a new traffic signal at the Hawthorne Road intersection, just across the street goes into the subdivision. Just east of that intersection would be a roundabout in the development, and that would be a public roundabout. All the other roads that would be developed would be private access roads or parking lots of the 8 lots that are in front of you, and they would come in when those lots are developed individually. Pedestrian connectivity. Staff required a bike path. Actually, the bike path plan requires a bike path through this site. And they're extending a bike path along Stratford Road, just south of Meeker Way, north to the northern portion of the site, west of the site, just south of the Elliott subdivision. And then it would extend south to the roundabout. Then it would extend west again to US 23, and that's where it would cross 23. And they would construct that over this portion of the approval. In addition, a bike path from lot 5 to lot 1 to the Chesround property when lot 1 developed would be required. And it would likely follow that access road in lot 1 because there's a lot of topography in that area. So that would have to occur when lot 1 is developed. Also, because this is along US 23, the city policy is not to require a sidewalk along US 23. What requires a payment in lieu of a sidewalk and easements in case it's ever constructed. And that would be required when each lot develops. Lots 1 and 2 would not require a payment in lieu because actually the bike path extends behind those 2 lots and comes out to 23. However, lot 3 in Reserve A would require a payment in lieu. Lot 3 wouldn't be developed until later. That's when the payment in lieu would be required for lot 3. The Reserve A would require payment in lieu at approval of this because this is the last time that's the frontage and this is the final development plan for that area. And that fee would be $14,650 based on the linear square feet at $35 per linear foot. Tree removal and replacement. If you remember through the approved development text, they did a tree survey, calculation of all the trees that would be removed, We had a formula that ultimately they owe $407,000 or as it develops. One condition of this approval is that applicant agreed to pay $100,000 up front or plant 1,000 additional trees before the development plan is approved. Likely to be the payment up front in this case. Landscaping and screening, they're required to do landscaping and screening of just the area that they're developing now in the infrastructure phase, and that will include installation of street trees along the public spine road, installation of landscaping along Stratford Road from Meeker Way north to Reserve A, install landscaping in Reserves A, B, and C, and install mounting and landscaping adjacent to Elliott subdivision along the northern portion of the site. They exceed all those requirements except for along the buffer adjacent to the Elliott subdivision to the north. That mound is required to be 6 foot high with minimum 6 foot high pine evergreen trees planted 20 feet on center. Per the grading plans, that mound is not consistently 6 foot high, and we need to ensure that it's 6 foot high, and we'll do that through our approval, the engineering drawing approval, the construction drawings.
Lance, I'm sorry, and just note that we had late last week, some clarification on that mounding that was sent in by the applicant after some discussion as well, which achieved closer compliance to this, and there are a couple of spots that we still need to work on per what Lance said. So pending approval of council, we'll do that obviously with the applicant.
In addition to the landscaping, stone piers will be required along the frontage of lots 1, 2, 3, and Reserve A. In this case, Reserve A would require the stone piers to be installed toward this infrastructure. And also a stone monolith would be required I believe it would be in Reserve A, just adjacent to the traffic signal at Hawthorne Boulevard. Also, staff is requesting in the grass area of the roundabout that be installed landscaping and or monument for aesthetic and safety reasons. Reserve areas on this plan, the areas in green are areas that are preserved. There's 2 streams that bisect the site, one on the northern portion and one in the southwestern portion. Those areas will be preserved, and also the areas around their retention and detention ponds. And this exhibit shows the preservation in open space. The dark green area is what I like to call man-made open space along Stratford Road, where the 2 retention ponds would be, and the creek that connects those. In the lighter green are the reserve areas around the existing streams, so they'd be maintained in the entire development. The lighting plans were submitted and approved by the chief building official for the public spine road. And again, their intent for this is to prep the site, get it essentially pad ready for future development. So again, the final development plan for phase 1 and infrastructure is to install the public spine road, install the main trunk utilities, including stormwater basins, install the bike path, install the northern landscape buffer adjacent to the Elliott subdivision, and then install landscaping along the public street and Stratford Road within the reserve areas. Any future development would require final development plan approval, and any future landscaping, site amenities, or other requirements would occur when each lot or building come in front of us. Staff recommends approval of the final development plan phase 1 infrastructure with 19 conditions, the final subdivision plat with 6 conditions, and the street vacation with 1 condition. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, and just in summary, I'd say what you have before you is in complete conformance with the zoning that was approved in the preliminary plans and plats with the conditions noted. A lot of detail that Lance just walked us through very well, but the summary is that it's in conformance with all of the recent actions that have been taken by City Council. Again, with the conditions noted, and we appreciate the applicant's resilience and working forward with us to get their project done. The only little bit unusual condition here for us as Delaware is that we're typically used to seeing a building with the first final development plan. And in this case, the applicant has chosen to advance the infrastructure, and that's why you see the nomenclature for infrastructure only with this first final plan. But that's something we can accommodate under our processes. But that's the only really a little bit unusual thing for us to see. So happy to answer any questions that you might have.
What's the net gain of the traffic signals? We're getting 2 more traffic signals on 23. So there's the one at Meeker, there's going to be the one at the roundabout, and then the one before the Wendy's. Is that correct?
I'll let Matt answer, but for the planner, I mean, it kind of depends how you count the signals out there today.
Sure, right.
Whether there's a net gain or loss, you could argue it's the same or really a net gain at Hawthorne.
Right, I would agree. One net gain signal.
Okay.
The signal at Meeker, I consider a relocation
Correct.
of the signal at Stratford.
Correct.
So the new signal is the one at the main entrance.
Okay.
Center entrance.
I think that the landscaping plan on the inside along Stratford Road is very good. I was a little surprised there isn't anything along 23. I mean, I was hoping we would learn from the past and do some landscaping along 23 to, to add a little green, a little beauty to the place, instead of just.
And that will occur as the lots develop, plus Reserve A is being reserved along 23.
So you're saying at 1, 2, and 3, when they come back in for development, we'll have a landscaping plan on 23 for that we can.
Up for the whole site, including along 23, and including Lance mentioned the piers, the stone piers. They would include.
I knew the stone piers, but I just.
We have trees and shrubs and all.
There's a lot inside here, but I hope we're not going to leave 23 just wide open.
Now, the zoning text requires that that's landscape. It just requires it as they develop the lot.
When I was looking at the tree removal and replacement section, and you said the $100,000 up front, the balance, as detailed in here, is paid back, looks like on an acreage basis as this develops.
They're welcome to pay it all up front, but I don't think they want to do that.
Right, and I don't blame you. But with that said, I think that my concern is that if you get to a situation where the economy tanks, nothing happens, okay? 15 years go by and you don't have anything out there. I think there needs to be a kind of a sunset clause on saying, well, as these develop, our assumption is over 10 years, or whatever that planning horizon is that this develops. If it doesn't, I want that done at that point. I don't want it to go forever. And
2 thoughts for you in regard to that. The first one you may not like very much, and that's okay. I'm going to tell it to you anyway. As you know. The first thought is that would have been a matter to consider during the zoning, which set the schedule for tree replacement, which has already been approved by council, as you know. Yeah. So that's in place. Having said that, and I think it's a good schedule. I agree that council should have approved it, and you did. The other thought is that we then subsequently in the tree clearing permit, which I know changed the site dramatically by taking the trees down. Construction's messy and it will look every bit as gorgeous as all the renderings when all is said and done. But in the tree clearing permit, we worked with the applicant and they provided us essentially the guarantee that you just mentioned based on years of schedule. So that at a certain point, all of it is due, or trees are replanted, either one.
Right.
It could be So we have that guarantee as well.
Okay.
So that's part of the line.
All right.
Is that fair, Connie? Okay.
Any other questions for staff? Would the applicant like to come forward? Just state your name and address for the record, please.
Certainly. Connie Klima, Pataskla, Ohio, PO Box 991. I'm having a wonderful time. It's a pleasing time in my life to be at this stage, especially in early spring. Being able to get to this point where we're going to actually start smelling dirt and other types of construction going on. So I want to say in regard to your comment, as soon as you started saying that, I thought how wonderful it has been to work with the staff, but you also have staff members who sort of foresaw that that might be an issue when we went to get our tree permit, so that was addressed immediately. So it's wonderful to be working with them. We have stayed in touch in communication and had numerous meetings since we all last met here. And I have to say I've worked in many, many cities and townships and counties. And this has been one of the most pleasurable experiences. So I appreciate that, and I'm not saying that to get zoning approved because it's approved. So that's a good thing. But I'll also say this, that the experience of working with the neighbors that we've talked before has also been a pleasant experience. We decided early on that we would have updating, basically meetings with the neighbors. So the Historical Society, the barn adjacent, of course, has provided us the place to do that. And we've had 2 so far now, before we started the trees and then just last Friday, where we send out notices to the community and let them know that we're going to be there. And we've had pretty good turnouts, so we can sit there and actually communicate. We bring the engineers and let them know what's going to happen before they wake up in the morning and hear something and wonder what's going on. In addition to that, we have been talking with the city about providing some of our tree replacement requirements to the Historical Society because of their party area outside, their wedding areas. They needed trees and some other things. In addition to that, we're going to be giving them a lot of the soil that we need to get rid of. So we're trying to be a good neighbor in that way. Also, we were told by staff in their communication that in taking down the houses on Stratford Drive, it would be great if we talked with your fire department. And the fire department is now working with us, and they will be actually using all of those houses as training grounds for fires and whatever there may be. So we're getting to know people in the neighborhood better and working with them. And you, Mr. Schaefer, I appreciate your comment. I remember you mentioned something like that when we were going through this on the first time round. And those plans, as they come in along 23, will finally include buildings and also some landscaping plans for those sites. So I won't go on much longer, but I appreciate it if you have any questions. I'm here, and I also have several of the people that I work with here.
Questions for the applicant?
Pending approval on the street vacation, when would you expect to start raising those homes in that subdivision?
We are presently going through and doing all of the investigations, of course, for the chemicals or whatever that has to be done. And I believe, Scott, what is that? When do they plan to begin?
The intention is for the fire department to take care of them by the end of June. They would be done there, then we would have to clean up the foundations.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions for the applicant?
Just a question. Did I hear, Lance, that you said that the vacation has to happen first? Before the subdivision is?
In sequence, it's just a paper.
Okay.
Effectively, it will, if council approves the vacation, then it will actually happen first, because it's going to take a long period of time to build that road and then for us to accept it and actually file the new subdivision plan.
All right. At this time, I would invite the public to come forward. If there's anyone in the public who would like to comment on this case tonight, it's your opportunity. All right, seeing none, I bring it back to the commission.
I'll make a motion for approval of 2017-0689 with all staff recommendations.
Motion by Commissioner Paul,
Second?
second by Commissioner Badger.
Mr. Badger,
Yes.
Mr. Halter,
Yes.
Mr. Prohl,
Yes.
Mr. Volnek,
Yes.
Councilman Hellinger,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Mansoras,
Yes.
Chairman Simpson.
Yes.
I'll make a motion for approval of 2017-0691 with all staff recommendations.
Motion by Commissioner Paul,
Second?
second by Commissioner Badger.
Mr. Badger,
Yes.
Mr. Halter,
Yes.
Mr. Prohl,
Yes.
Mr. Volnek,
Yes.
Councilman Hellinger,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Mansoras,
Yes.
Chairman Simpson.
Yes.
And finally, I'll make a motion to approve 2017-0692 with all staff recommendations.
Motion by Commissioner Paul,
Second?
second by Commissioner Badger.
Mr. Badger,
Yes.
Mr. Halter,
Yes.
Mr. Prohl,
Yes.
Mr. Volnek,
Yes.
Councilman Hellinger,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Mansoras,
Yes.
Chairman Simpson.
Yes. All right, moving on to item B on tonight's agenda. Could the clerk please read that into the record?
Item B, 2017-0731, request by Tree Plus Communities for a concept plan review for Burr Oak Commons on approximately 20.06 acres zoned B3 Community Business District, located on the north side of State Route 37, just west of Westfield Shopping Center and just east of Lantern Chase subdivision.
It sites north of State Route 37, between Kroger and Lantern Chase, Zone B3 today. Likely rezoned when the Westfield Shopping Center is rezoned B3. The land use plan has that area as mixed use. Adjacent to the west, a single, north and west, a single family subdivision. And to the east is a apartment complex, and the southeast is the shopping center. This is the aerial. The rear of the site is fairly flat. As you proceed towards State Route 37, it drops significantly. 37 is just heavily treed in that area. There's trees along the east portion of the site adjacent to the apartments, and some scattered throughout the development. The applicant requested a concept review plan. The intent to get input from staff report, and the commission on this proposed use, see if it, from a land use perspective, does it make sense, and from a site design perspective. Trepolis is the developer. They build, develop, and hold apartment 55 and older, who are renter by choice, and they achieve compliance with the Housing for Older Persons Act of 1995. They're requesting a rezoning to B3 PMU for this site. The site's about 20 acres. They're proposing 92 single-family apartments, density about 4.6 units per acre. They'd be ranch-style apartment units with universal design, 1 and 2 bedroom apartments ranging from 12 to 1,600 square feet. There'd be 25 buildings with a clubhouse associated with associated tenant and visitor parking. Access from the site would be from State Route 37 would be the primary access. Secondary access would be from the Westfield Shopping Center. From a comprehensive plan, land use plan perspective, as I indicated, it's designated as mixed use for this particular site. Some of the objectives of the land use plan indicates the completion of residential development is supported at densities consistent with what's adjacent to it, and institutional uses such as senior residential are supported in this sub area. In conclusion, from staff's perspective, although the proposed apartment complex, the Lantern Chase subdivision to the west, Westfield Shopping Center to the east, were developed on different parcels at different times by different developers, but it could be considered a single mixed-use development if developed concurrently for today's standards. And it would likely be a good transition from the single family to the west to the apartments and shopping center to the east. It appears the proposed apartment development would likely be more compatible with the land use plan than most commercial uses that are permitted in the B3 zoning district that currently is over the site, with a proposed apartment complex of appropriate size, scale, buffering, and building materials adjacent to the single family development to the north and west. From a zoning perspective, as I indicated, the applicant is requested a planned mixed-use overlay district, which staff supports because it allows us to go through a negotiated process to better control development on the site and allow for specific design materials and landscaping to the adjacent single-family residents to the north and west. From an engineering perspective, they haven't submitted any engineering plans at this level. They've submitted a pretty comprehensive site plan. Our engineering department reviewed this plan and gave them an outline of future transportation, sanitary sewer, stormwater management, and water distribution requirements as we move forward. As I indicated, the main access to this site would be from State Route 37. It would actually are proposing to construct a eastbound turn lane into this site. The secondary access would be through an existing easement they have with the Westfield Hills Shopping Center, which would be just east of the site. And also they're contemplating a emergency access only at the northern end of the site adjacent to the Lantern Chase subdivision through their detention basin that would connect to the existing street pattern out there. It would be at a minimum a walking or pedestrian path access and at a maximum an emergency access. That needs to be vetted through all the city departments, the applicant, and the adjacent stakeholders to determine what is appropriate if we proceed through this process. From a pedestrian connectivity perspective, there'd be internal and external pedestrian connectivity required. Along State Route 37, there is a bike path in front of Westfield Hills Shopping Center. Our plan has that extending west through this site and the Lantern Chase site. Staff is requesting that they give us the easements for that through this site, and it's likely that the city would build that bike path later this year, regardless if this development moves forward or not. Also, they are proposing a pedestrian path from the aforementioned emergency access on the northern portion of the site through the development, which would be through the public streets or the private streets and sidewalk to State Route 37 and to the Westfield Hills Shopping Center. Again, that alignment needs to be vetted with all parties. The configuration of the site would be you'd enter the site from 3637 just east of the retention pond, and just north of the intersection of the secondary access drive would be the clubhouse. And as you extend into the development, would be a loop development with two east-west streets bisecting development, and that's where you'd have your 25 buildings and 92 units. The site would have 371 parking spaces, 164 would be garage spaces. For example, one bedroom would have one garage space, two bedroom would have two garage spaces, 164 driveway spaces, that's determined by the garage size, 23 overflow visitor spaces, and 20 spaces at the clubhouse. The 92 units would be in 25 buildings, as I indicated, with the buildings between 2 and 6 unit buildings throughout the development. They'd be divided into 21 bedroom units, 34 2-bedroom units, and 38 what they're calling 2+ bedroom units. This would equate to about 80% would be 2-bedroom or 2-bedroom plus units, and 20% 1-bedroom units. The amenities would include gourmet kitchens with stainless steel appliances, granite countertops, universal design, which includes low step showers, entrances, lever doors, wide halls, LED lights, trash totes, placement to and from the garages, bulk removal, on-site management, and home check-in when the residents are traveling. The clubhouse would have amenities such as a fitness center, a business center, club rooms for cards, yoga, book clubs, other events, a patio with a fire pit, and a cafe with Wi-Fi. The landscaping plan would require street trees throughout the private roads. Also would require perimeter buffering to the north and west adjacent to the single-family homes. They're proposed a 30-foot buffer with mounding. Staff recommends the mound be a minimum 6 foot high with 6 foot high minimum evergreen trees at installation, planted 20 feet on center, and that would likely require a 40-foot wide width to get the mound to be a 3-to-1 slope for the buffer on the site. Obviously, the Shade Tree Commission would have to approve any landscape plans as we move forward. Tree removal and replacement, as I indicated, there are trees along the southern portion of the site and along the eastern portion of the site, and a few scattered on the site. They'd have to do a tree inventory, identifying the size and type of trees and how many would be replaced. Any signage would have to be approved with the gateways and corridors plan. Lighting would be required for private streets and the parking lots. Obviously, the lighting plan wasn't included in this package. The community impact assessment would be required in an environmental analysis map. The building elevations, obviously through our PMU requirements, we have pretty strict design standards. 100% natural materials will be required. It appears their architecture is more modern in style. It's obviously one-story ranch style. It appears that they're including building materials such as limestone, wainscoting, and accents, minimum overhangs, window trim, garage doors with windows, which are typical of our requirements. It appears they're on the right track to meet our requirements, but until we move forward, we'd have to dig down deeper to determine what the exact elevations and materials would be. Again, this is a concept plan review, so no action is necessary by the commission.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I'd just say thank you to the applicant and her team. Jane is here with, as you can see, a full team at a concept review level, which is wonderful from our perspective as staff. We've had a number of very productive meetings, and this is maybe as complete a concept plan as I've seen here, giving us lots of good detail and allowing you to provide hopefully lots of good feedback. I will give you a little perspective, as I think maybe George and Jim are the only ones on the commission that recall the last time something came through on this piece. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. It's been a while. There have been several since I've been here. And I really think they've all been residential or residential and some commercial. That was the last one. Definitely more intense overall than this proposal. I would say in summary, at least from a non-binding concept review perspective, this is probably the best plan that I've seen come through to this point, and certainly the most full development team working with the neighborhood. They've had several neighborhood meetings and received input out there. So that's a good start. And we certainly hope that if they move forward, they'll continue to do that and receive that input from the neighborhood. Obviously, it would be a change from the B3, but you could think about a lot of B3 uses that would be far more intense than what they're proposing as well. And then just one note, I know they're going to talk about it too, and I'll let they should talk about it, is that one of the unique elements to this on the residential perspective is the ability to age restrict some of these units, which I think further speaks to not being as intense a development as it's been proposed in the past, or that it could be as well. But overall, we're really pleased with the concept review. We appreciate the developers' time and interest in the city of Delaware, and open it up to them. This is really their concept review. This is what you paid for. So come on up and let us stop talking and you talk about your project for a little while.
I'll approach it, that's all right.
You got to start with a lawyer, Jay?
She sent me up here.
Oh, boy. Earning his money tonight.
If you could just state your name and your address for the record.
I will. My name is Andrew Wecker. I'm an attorney with Manis, Martin, and Pergram, and my address is 50 North Sandusky Street, Delaware, Ohio, 43015. And first, I would like to thank the staff. I think we've had meetings with what David and Lance have put together with us. We've had a chance to meet with Ted from Parks, Brad from Utilities, Matt and Carrie have met with us as well, and that's been very helpful as we've tried to take the neighborhood comments from Layer and Chase and reconcile that with our business plan. And we have had a chance, we've had 2 meetings with community members, one with the board members just to get some direction to see, where we were. And then we had another meeting, we opened that up to all the Layer and Chase community members. And that was, all that was after Chris Jones had posted something on his website, or I beg your pardon, his Facebook page, generated a lot of comments for us. And then we've also, Layer and Chase has posted, I think the version of that plan just before what you see here has been posted on the Layer and Chase Facebook page. So it's been a good opportunity for us to meet with neighbors and then also work that out with staff. Some of the things that we'd like to just reemphasize, I know you've gotten your materials here, but Trade Plus is not just a developer builder. We plan to own this and to comply with the Housing with Older Persons Act of 1995. That requires a certain level of management to be kept in place because all these units will be, the primary occupant will be 55 or older. And as far as our architecture, I think one thing we'd like to leave with you is we do have a palette of architectural materials that's on the architectural elevation, if you've got that in your materials. And we like to think of it as more of a classic shed roof. The exterior, the 4 sides, I think you'd feel pretty much what you'd see in the area. The difference is we have a single pitch roof and without a gable. And what we have here is upscale interior finishes, and we would be fairly intensive. Part of what comes on with the Housing with Older Persons Act, you're already there managing anyways. So we would try to have a concierge level of service and programming. And the interior, I mentioned our surface finishes. One thing that's very important for an age-in-place housing project like this is, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the concept of universal design, but as people get older and they have trouble climbing stairs, they can stay in their homes much more longer if there's no steps, either coming in through the threshold or inside, either within the living area or inside the bathroom. And so, it's set up with wider spaces and zero entry. And that will come into something later that I'd like to leave you with, just based on one of the staff's recommendations on the exterior. I think Lance did a fine job talking about garage and parking. And one of the reasons, I think I mentioned earlier, Parks was in our initial meetings. This is a way, this project, to complete the connectivity from Layer and Chase down to the YMCA just a few miles away. Trade Plus does not own this property yet. It's in contract. They have it to purchase, but that easement, that right-of-way access is, I think, something that Parks is interested in. And actually, Trade Plus likes to have a lot of connectivity with existing amenities as well. I think the last thing, and then I'll leave it to the commission to ask questions, is our site plan was drawn with 30 feet setback on the sides that were up against Layer and Chase. And The staff is asking for 40 feet, and I'm wondering how much of that has to do with the berming, since Lance mentioned, 6-foot berm requires a 40-foot base. We're fairly grade sensitive with our project, and that gets back to the zero entry that we try to achieve coming in to our units. And I think while it might be feasible, it starts to get difficult if we take that extra 10 feet and add it onto the 30 feet. Our architect is here tonight, Brad Parrish. He is the president of Architectural Alliance. If you have any further questions, we could discuss that now. Otherwise, we might just save that for our further staff discussions when we get into preliminary. And I think the other thing is traffic circulation works right now with our existing layout. We have to make up that space someplace, and it could get more difficult to get ambulances and fire trucks through there. The firefighters were all in our meetings, and they seem to respond favorably to our site plans so far. So, and then with that, I'm available for questions. We also have the project manager, the architect, and the principals of Trade Plus, if you'd like to ask them any questions.
So you say you're in contract to purchase the property?
Trade Plus says yes.
So is any of what happens this evening or any easements or right-of-ways contingent upon the closing of the property?
That would be discussed between the parties. I think obviously, strictly speaking, the application was signed by Troy Farms of Delaware LLC, which is the current record owner, so they support this project, and they're well aware of the the interest in completing this pathway from Laren Chase. And that they're aware of that, and we can discuss, I guess, the sequence, maybe to answer your question now that a light went off my head. The normal preferred sequence for an owner like Troy Farms would be they sell it and let Trade Plus do with it whatever they want to do with it. And, anything more than that, I'd have to take back to Troy Farms and see what their principal thinks.
Any additional questions?
I guess at the entrance exit that you're proposing, will there be a new traffic light there? Or how will that be controlled?
No, there's no warrant that would be met for a traffic light.
Okay.
Obviously, 37's got high volume, but just with the amount of units, it just doesn't have a warrant. There's no through connection to any other part of the development, any development surrounding. We are pleased that the applicant is committed to the turn lane improvement, and that's significant. So that helps gain our support for the concept plan for sure.
Okay.
Any other questions or feedback?
I just don't like the entrance exits. I just don't like those, because that's on a, 37 there's on an upward grade as you're going up there. You already have the light there, to go into the shopping center, and you got Lantern Chase down below. To me, that just looks like that's going to be problems down the road. It's too many intersections and too short of a period on something that isn't a good sight line with level ground. So, and of course you have the going into the shopping center, and that just, maybe that's a lesser of all evils, but I don't like that. The good thing I do like, though, is I do like your emergency egress there on the back, because it would definitely be a non-starter without that. But yeah, and I don't know how that looks to change that, to make that less congested, but I could just see that as, I envision that would be an issue going forward as traffic overall continues to increase, even if we have a left turn lane and stuff. That just really rubs me the wrong way.
I think what you're going to end up with is people cutting through the shopping center to get to the light. It's going to.
Oh, yeah, that's going to end up being the primary way, because you're not going to be able to get out there. And I just, yeah, if I was a resident back there, I wouldn't have to cut through the shopping center. And I don't think it's a shopping center, I'd want people cutting.
Well, that's part of the access agreement.
Just a
that-
thought for you, that there is an existing easement.
Right.
For the shopping center, sure.
center, I think, for the purpose of getting to the light, is I
Right.
wasn't here, but it makes sense. So I'm not so sure it's cutting through, as you have people that may be using the services in the shopping center. It's better than going out on 37 and coming back in, et cetera, but I'm not discounting your points with respect to the access, but I'm sure Matt has.
Yeah, it is intended to function as like a backage road to 37. So that is the intent, is for people that want to head east, is to utilize that access agreement with the shopping center and use the light rather than turn left out. So if it does become an accident problem, which we don't predict it will be, because what we've done is we've spaced the intersection about halfway between current intersections. We can't really deny access without damaging the property as a whole, so we have to allow some access. But if we had to someday, not because of an accident problem, maybe just because, 10, 15 years from now, the volumes are much higher than we predicted for whatever reason, we could ban left turns out during peak hour, and that wouldn't be too harmful, I don't think, to the community, because they could just go to the light and turn left. It would just be a peak hour thing. I mean, that's like worst case. And we don't even feel that that's needed strongly enough to where we would have made it a condition, or we would make it a condition in our approvals. I do respect the comments. It's not ideal. It will have impact on 37. There's no doubt. But it's, we think that the construction of the turn lane mitigates the impact.
And again, going back to some of the history, given the other uses that have been proposed on this site, given the age restriction, the likely clientele, just the 92 units on the site, which is not a lot on the 20 acres really, and certainly in comparison to the commercial, which is how it's done now, there'll be a lot less trips.
Correct.
Which is part of why Matt is saying what he's saying, I think, too. But it's a good comment. I promised them lots of comments and questions.
No pressure.
No pressure on you. That's one. That's two.
Yeah, the issue is there's not a lot of good alternatives, George.
Right, yeah, I understand that, and that's why I'm very torn, but I just, if there was another alternative, I would take it over what that is.
And George, I hear you on the back access. I think we all see value in pedestrian connectivity back there, for sure. But you also would be right next to somebody's existing home, or kind of almost in a basin. It's a dry basin. So, you have to take in, there obviously, those people aren't here tonight. So we have to kind of make sure they'd be okay with that. I think this lives with or without that. Would it be better with it? It definitely would be better with that. And if you could make it look aesthetically pleasing and still accommodate, maybe an EMS squad or something like that, could be the, eco pavers or something. But again, I think those are conversations that if this moves forward, obviously they're going to have with the neighbors, and as part of any rezoning, they would be in here having a conversation with us anyway.
Well, yeah, because if you had
It was never accounted for in Lantrick Chase.
Yeah.
Too. So I mean, for whatever reason.
Yeah, I mean, if there was an incident that happened to the north of that shopping center tee out there, you would then have, and you did have that emergency access for emergency vehicles off the north end, you couldn't get anybody in and out. And, as you recall with our Speedway conversations, all the issues with Kensington, we would never design a complex that didn't have multiple outlets nowadays. And here we are. So it's important that it would be a total non-starter without that. As far as
They do have two ways in and out, and we have talked about those, John Donahue, the fire chief, for all the reasons you're stating. Really, the pinch point is kind of between where the two roads come together and that first main road, because then you're in a gridiron, essentially a gridiron street. And he and his staff are comfortable with the layout, and kind of as I just expressed, it would be nice if the northern one was there as well. But again, we have to be respectful of the people that live there.
Sure.
They never anticipated that happening. So we're at a concept stage, so those are details and more conversations to come. And it's definitely they've heard that comment a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe they could just put a heliport right now.
Heliport, drag strip or something. It would certainly only be for, emergency kind of crash through access.
Right.
If it's something beyond just, connecting the pedestrian network.
Mm-hmm.
The thing we talked about with them is you can observe, maybe not now because it's been so rainy, but typically you can observe the tire tracks of kids' bicycles pretty much right in there anyway as they're visiting their friends to the apartments or going down to Kroger or whatever it is they're doing. But so people in the real world, access or no, are kind of using it that way.
Yeah, I guess my only would be, does internal signage help, would you think, Matt, on directing traffic into Kroger to get to, Central, to head them east? Particularly, not for the residents, because they would know, but, with that many, you expect a lot of visitors and stuff like that.
Every drivers you could.
Those are private roads, right? So we wouldn't have that.
Yeah, we would need to do something that, nowadays, we tend to like to have, the code says you need to try to do, even though they're private streets, you need to try to do public standard signage.
Okay.
I would assume the applicant doesn't want to do a big obnoxious sign.
No,
Standards, but maybe we could, that's.
Central that way, go to Kroger, and,
Yeah.
go to the light or something, I mean, just,
Something we'll definitely.
particularly for the visitors more than residents are gonna figure it out pretty quickly.
Weber's killing me over there, man. Our wayfinding signs are compliant with public, and they're pretty nice, so maybe there's something between a big green sign and.
Yeah, directional signing and.
Pointing that way.
I know.
Okay.
Any comments on the, for the architecture or universal design? Since I've been here, we've had developments with elements of universal design, but not true universal design. So that's a little bit of a new concept maybe for Delaware, maybe for some of you, but it's definitely coming to more and more developments near you soon.
It can be something as simple as a lever on the door handle instead of a knob.
Yeah. Lower kitchen counter rather than higher, or counters that actually can move. So they start off at a typical height and then can be lowered. So there's lots of different elements to it.
You have an architect here right now.
I don't have any issue with the building design. I think the buildings look nice. I think it's got a nice modern feel. I have no concerns about the design of the buildings or any of the materials.
Did I hear correctly, it's 100% natural front then?
Actually, if you turn to the elevation, you'll see an exterior material palette, and I think we've tried to be consistent with other communities. I think Redwood comes to mind. I think they may have vinyl, but there is vinyl here.
Yeah.
There's stone base, and then what's different is we vary the frontages as far as it's not a uniform front line, and then the pitches and how the pitches come together are different. Well, the pitch is always the same. It's how they come together.
Right.
I think the pitches are all 312.
Yeah, I find the elevation to be very pleasing. It's, no issues there at all. And I think it's with being that condensed, that many units in that area, I think this would really help pull it off. There's a lot of those, different type of frontages that just would look like you got 10 pounds in a 5-pound bag. But here, I think this would be able to be pulled off very well with that. Yes.
You'll see, I think another thing you appreciate, there's quite a bit of glass in these buildings.
There's quite a bit of parking.
Yes,
I was going to ask George.
Plenty of parking.
Do you find the parking
You're partial to that.
Yeah. That might have come up in our discussion.
That's why I was curious why George didn't say anything.
That's a good thing. That is satisfying. Could I get your opinions relative to this mounting and buffering adjacent to the existing residences? Again, obviously, you don't have the benefit of having the residents in front of you right now. But I guess our thinking, to explain it a little better, at a 3-to-1 slope with a 6-foot mound and then 6-foot trees on the top, which is exactly what Connie Klima had to do against residential, just the application before you. That's at least 36 feet wide. If you don't have, any kind of a little bit of room on the top, and you want a little bit of room on the top for the plantings, or else it just kind of gets a little weird and the trees don't typically grow as well. So that's the reason why we're suggesting 40. Now, we notice all of the units have patios in the back as well, which even into this 30-foot buffer it would go into that buffer a little ways. He shook his head no, so maybe he'll correct me. But when we look at the site plan, finding 10 feet as you kind of go across the plan to the east, and it may be a foot here, and a foot there, and a foot here, being respectful of what Andy said, that it's all still got to lay out, right, to their business model, or else it doesn't work. We're thinking, at least at a conceptual level, that's worth exploring to achieve that level of buffering, which is not atypical of the standards we've put on a lot of people. But that's sort of a little more explanation for you guys that we haven't had a chance to talk about a little bit, and I guess for the commission. But can we hear some thoughts on that? Maybe you're okay at this conceptual level the way it is, or maybe you have other thoughts.
I don't know how in the world you're going to find the 10 feet. It really doesn't, just looking at the picture, it's small scale, granted.
Yeah.
And are you talking about on the northeast and west? You're not talking on
north and west. Really, otherwise you have apartments to apartments, and you have a stream corridor to the east, and then you're a shopping center, obviously. So just really on the north and the west to the single family home.
My opinion is if they can get 40 feet and make it work fine, but if not, 30 is, in my opinion, fine also.
I guess.
And the only reason I would say that is because that effectively takes the mound height down. Because you can't, you could have one greater than 3-to-1 slope. I've seen them out there. We've all seen them out there. And I've seen people mow them out there greater than 3-to-1. But I would not want to be on that. Let me just put it that way. That's a fairly typical ratio.
I guess from my perspective, I was thinking potentially that the buffer from their apartment, the existing apartments could be less, and maybe you can make up to 10 feet by reducing that because of the apartments adjacent to apartments. But I don't know the grading plan, so.
Steve, was there anything?
You're right. Look at that on a small scale. It's hard to see.
Yeah, I guess, I kind of look, I don't think a 6-foot high bothers me.
Okay.
It really depends on the landscaping that's buried into that mound.
Okay.
Because if let's say that the mound was only 4 foot high, and put in a 30-foot section, okay? As long as the landscaping grew high enough, you would accomplish what you're trying to accomplish, which is a blocking between different units, between different sections of what's built over there.
So maybe if it was evergreen trees planted 8 foot tall instead of 6 foot, the mound is 4 foot. So something,
Yeah,
is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and also a little bit of density of it.
And then how you-
You'd have to be a little more dense, because
Yeah.
that's helpful.
a 4 to 6, if you're
Mhm.
sitting on a back patio, is a pretty good difference of 2 feet, type of thing.
I think there's
So you
kind
want
of,
to get more depth in there with the landscape.
Yeah, you need more depth, definitely need more depth of landscaping. And, landscaping, I think, has more of a tendency to bury sound too, than mount. I mean, that's always been my feeling, that landscaping can really cut sound down. Nothing's better cutting sound than a bunch of evergreens.
I think both of them definitely work together. I think he wants to correct something.
Brad Parrish with Architectural Alliance, 165 North Fifth Street, project architect for this development. One thing I want to point out is, first off, the 30-foot setback, we actually have the patios outside.
Okay.
So that's.
So a little more room to
that's
work
one
in.
element. So we're about
That's
2 to 3 to 4 feet, it's a projection out. Each patio is recessed to provide privacy for each one of the units. Also, we're talking about a single family or a single story building. We're not talking about a 3-story building that we're trying to buffer up against a residential neighborhood. So with a 6-foot mound and tree on top, I can see if we're having a 3-story multifamily product, but it's a 1-story single family that's backing up to single family resident that most of them are probably 2-story to begin with. Also, from this property down, there's grading that occurs in the front half of the site. So really, there's about I think 5 to 8 feet from that property line to the homes themselves. The narrowest point from the set, from building to building, at this location is about 75 feet. Over here, from this house to this building is 90 feet. And the way we laid out the site, we also wanted to mitigate against sort of creating a barrier design along that western property line. That's why we sort of jogged the property, the drive aisle, so that we can break this sort of long barrier design sort of on that property line. So those were just a couple things. So I think the 6-foot mound plus 6-foot trees, it's seeming to be creating a massive barrier for, again, a 1-story product.
So if we're aiming at kind of a combination of density of landscaping and 12 feet of height, sitting here at the conceptual level, be that mound or trees or some combination thereof, is that kind of what I'm hearing? Or no, given all that?
No, I think we could be creative with the different possibilities.
And obviously depending what we might hear from the neighbors, they've obviously met with them a couple times.
So what has that feedback been like, your meetings with the community?
Oh, I beg your pardon. I'm sorry. I was taking a note. I was wrapped up. I was actually listening instead of running my mouth. I think the feedback from, and I may give Jane Arthur a chance to speak to this as well. I think the feedback from the community that, as I said, the first meeting we had was just board members, just to get a sense of things, kind of a soft introduction, as you might imagine. And that went very well, and it turned into an exchange with those. And then the meeting with the homeowners, they were, again, this was open to everyone, but it wasn't that everyone turned out, so and for which a well from that. And I would probably defer to my client to speak to that, because on that particular night, I have a board meeting I have to attend, and I wasn't able to make that meeting. And I ended up,
My name is Stephen Hicks from Treples Communities, 1515 Lakeshore Drive, Columbus. Just to comment on the first meeting was with the board, and then the second meeting was open to everyone, but it ended up being essentially the board and a few residents. There wasn't as much of a turnout as we really had anticipated, considering we had heard stories of prior developers meeting with the homeowners and prior objections, and really what it did kind of turn into was more of a brainstorming effort of well, here's a list of all the things that the neighbors have been concerned about from prior submittals, and how are you addressing that? And so we've tried to go through and address all of those concerns and then make changes. We made changes to our site plan before we submitted it for concept. So we were hoping to try to take care of as many issues as we could at the front end of the process. And I did want to address one comment from Lance about setbacks. We went with a 30-foot setback on almost all of the property boundaries, except over at the shopping center where there is kind of some space over there that's kind of open, and so that one's slightly smaller. We are limited physically on the setback to the east with the apartment complex there. There's a ephemeral stream that essentially goes down the middle of the property line, and so we are required to stay 30 foot off the center line of that stream. And so that's what we're also kind of lines up perfectly, the fact that the property line is right down the middle of that stream. So we just set our buildings 30 foot off that.
One thing, Steve, I was curious about during that meeting, was there any discussion about the relief, like the drainage, just because of the slope?
Yeah,
homeowners are downhill from the site.
One of the issues that we think other developers have struggled with on this site is that there is an open drainage ditch that goes from the north Lantern Chase detention basin there to the south, and then connects into the creek before it gets to the shopping center there at that kind of corner of the property. And we've consulted with civil and environmental consultants and applied with the Army Corps of Engineers and have a determination that that ditch is non-jurisdictional. So our intention is to pipe and bypass that ditch, which kind of opens up the site and actually made a site layout much more feasible and less, barracks-like as Brad had mentioned. So it freed us up to be able to do a little bit more creative things. We try to create a little bit of open space in the middle of the site, which not all developers that have a similar product like this try to accomplish that same thing. So we try to break it up, and we didn't just pack as many units in there as we could.
And the mounding will also help relieve drainage issues on Lantern Chase, I think I heard.
Yeah, we have heard some of the neighbors along that main entrance, is it Lantern Chase Drive, that Brad mentioned, these houses are lower than the site along the side, and I guess there is some just natural runoff right now coming from the site onto the backyards that maybe wasn't accounted for 100%, when everything was done. And so we believe that we would be able to mitigate a lot of those issues because we're going to have mounding, we're going to have to swale, we're going to have some storm inlets, and in regards to storm, we would do a pond out front by 37 with a fountain in it, and we think it would be fixing a lot of issues around there.
David, I have a question for you. What's the zoning on Lantern Chase, and what's the density of Lantern Chase?
Zoning's R3.
Zoning's R3. I don't know the density off the top of my head of what that ended up being.
Okay.
I can find out for you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I was flipping through the comprehensive plan when we were going through that, and it just, as a comprehensive, it's still in the 2 to 3.9 in that area. As far as the comprehensive plan, the land use for Lantern Chase.
Yeah. And
Land use in the multifamily obviously would be a lot higher than even this one, which was, I forget what it was, 4.5 or something.
Yeah.
I think it'll be somewhere in there. I just don't want to throw out a number without.
Sure.
I just don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if there isn't a big difference in density, which there isn't, although we don't know exactly what that is.
Right.
And to the point that, these are single-story units, and they're backing up to single, multi-story units. I don't see Now, I know that because it's a senior community, there's going to be a lot of Jimi Hendrix blaring, 140 decibels and what have you, but I just don't see, I don't know how much need there is for extensive buffering. And since there are a lot of uses, I mean, you know, it's still residential,
Some of the buffering is not for the noise going out. I think some of it's got to be for the noise coming in. You got apartments on one side, and, you know, there's nothing wrong with the houses on the other side, but I still think in a 55 community, sometimes you're trying to keep the noise from coming into them because they
Well, that's
don't
true,
want to
too.
hear it.
Yeah.
It's not going out. I mean, I try to keep Jimi Hendrix down to at least only twice a week. And, you know, just because the neighborhood shakes when I play it doesn't mean they don't enjoy it.
Specifically? Any other feedback? No?
No.
Okay.
And I really appreciate you being as complete as you've been.
Thank you.
Concept review, I think it's.
Thank you very much.
Shows in some of the lack of questions.
Well, it goes both ways. Thank you all.
Important work with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any members of the public who want to speak on this case tonight? No? All right. As staff mentioned at the beginning of this case, there's no commission action required on this particular item. All right, back to regular business, item C.
Item C, 2016-2797, a request by the City of Delaware for approval of amendments to Chapter 1111 subdivision regulations of the Planning and Zoning Code pertaining to acceptance of public improvements and bonding.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, pleased to advance this legislation for your consideration. It's been many months at this point in discussion amongst staff and a larger group, and then a smaller working group, which really let us kind of get down to the details. A lot of this is housekeeping and trying to better organize the chapter overall. Hopefully you, between looking at all the colors that you had to look at, you got that impression. That was one of the things we were going for without doing a full deep dive review of the entire subdivision section. I think the two things, given the hour, that I want to really highlight for you in this are these. One of the clear objectives was to have our acceptance of public improvements, which occurs by resolution now. It's only resolution by City Council. But depending on council's schedule and backing up to hit the schedule for a meeting, if a meeting's canceled, that can be 2 to 4 weeks, depending on all of that. Typically 2 to 3 weeks. One of the express things we wanted to do, and we heard from the development community, was it's fairly perfunctory. Council in my time here, I can't recall them ever pulling one of those off the docket and remarking on it after staff has performed inspections and reviews and gives you the documentation. All of the inspections, reviews, and documentations would still occur, but the acceptance of public improvements would be administrative by staff. It's really kind of administrative now since it's just a resolution of council. This would make it officially administrative. So that was, I think, a benefit to the speed and a nod to do what we can to still complete our work for the community, but do it in a more expeditious fashion for the development community. The other thing I wanted to highlight for you was the performance bond section. So you build the infrastructure, and then you get to a point where sometimes weather closes in, or you want to start building homes or model homes. Whatever the case may be. And there are what we refer to at the staff level as punch list items left to go. Typically, those have been allowed to be bonded here, and most of those are contained in the schedule that you see for bondable elements here. it really, the section today isn't as clear as this revised section, and one of our express goals was to try to make this more clear for everybody. And it may mean that some developers don't like some of the items on the list, but it's hard to argue that it's less clear than what is in the section today. One thing I note, though, is that there is an extension of what our practice has been with respect to allowing what could be bonded. With respect to the final wearing course of asphalt is typically had to be installed, and now is expressly in the list of bondable items. And that makes some sense because we sort of build the ghost town, as you've heard me call it, and then we go in there and we kind of beat up the curves and the streets and everything else as we go build houses, and of course we make them fix that, and then have maintenance bonds from that point on. So it makes some sense to allow, not just for weather, typically it's for weather, but there may be some other reasons to allow that final wearing course to be bonded as well. So obviously it would have to be completed, and the bond is a surety of that. So those are the two big things beyond housekeeping. And what we've pledged to the BIA is that there seems to be no reason not to advance this legislation, and continued discussions on maybe some of the other items that maybe require a lot more discussion and there might not be as much consensus about moving forward. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. Engineering staff, planning staff, utility staff all do recommend approval of these changes as proposed to you.
I just have a nitpick.
Okay, take away. Did we miss a?
That doesn't read right to me. And the same thing on the 11.
What page are you?
That's 111102 and 111104, item A3. The D is left off determined, or it could be deemed appropriate. It just didn't read right without a D on it. So I knitted my pick.
I would agree with you. Yep.
Now you know.
Good catch. Yeah, I know you read it now. That's at least to page 4.
Found the first thing that didn't make sense, and then moved on.
That's good. Good catch.
Other than that, it makes perfect sense to me, having been doing this for years. It just seemed like going to council for every little thing sometimes when staff's the only ones who really know nothing about it.
Exactly. I think it's the more efficient we can make our processes, the better off we are. And knowing that if there is an extenuating circumstance or something, there's always a different, a way we can alter that outcome. So, yeah. I don't think council needs to be involved in any type of administrative staff level shenanigans.
So these issues been brewing for some time now, and it's just that things have gotten so busy that have decided that it's time to address them? Has this been something in the
yeah, I wouldn't characterize them as issues been brewing for a while. I just think we've heard the development community came forward with some concerns with respect to the process. There were
one occasion then?
there was really started last year with conversations about how can we get more efficient in the process, from engineering submittals to planning submittals, just what we're requiring to make sure that, and part of the reason why we require it is because it's in code, but also you and council and other bodies that review the information want to see the information. So it's kind of more a question of when we see it, when you see it, how it comes. Part of the pledge on their side was to be as complete as they can with their submissions, which is something we've been asking for a while, because obviously the less complete takes us longer to review and to get changes back and forth and that sort of thing. I think there are a couple other issues here that aren't part of this that they probably are going to want to advance discussions about as well. But as I say, I think those are probably worthy, that might be more controversial and you may not be as accommodating with, in my opinion, knowing you how I do. And we may not be recommending approval of those to you. I don't know. It kind of depends how those discussions go. But things like advancing recordings of final plats in advance of installing anything, any of the infrastructure. And there's other issues as well. But I think there was consensus around what's in front of you today, and so there's no point in not advancing that when we have consensus to become more efficient, as you say. Do you have something?
Yeah, I did, George. This is, I consider this low-hanging fruit, basically. We found 2 weeks, a way to theoretically cut the process down on the average of 2 weeks. It doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're talking about construction season, that can mean a make or break of getting your road in or not at the end of the season. If we can find another 2 weeks working with the BIA over the next year, I think that's a huge success. So we've hired great additional staff. That was one of the things that we agreed to do. And that could save the developer on average of a week or two in review time. So we're making progress.
Well, to answer your question, it's definitely busy. As you know, you see a lot of the cases, or most of the cases, and it's busy for level of staff that we have as well. So that's a quality problem to have. Better than not being busy, for sure, as cities. I've worked in that environment, so I can speak with honesty about that. But I think it's just an effort to try to come together and advance some legislation that makes us more efficient, both at staff level and the private sector.
Guarantee developers are going to like it. Speed to approval.
Yeah, they
That's
like
all about.
this. They would probably, if you just got rid of it all, they'd be happy.
Yes, they would probably.
I don't see that happening.
No, and that's a good thing. Yeah, no commission action required on this. All right. Moving on to the next item, planning director's report.
Well,
Got to do something with this.
I love it if you voted on it.
You want us?
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
commission
It says no
action.
commission action now.
It says no commission
Huh?
action.
Well, that's not right.
Oh.
Scratch the no off of that.
Hold on a second.
Item D.
It's an amendment to the zoning codes. Yes, I need to
Let's-
take action.
Let's back up then.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. I'm going to just cross that out.
Cross out the no. Yes, commission action if you please.
So based on the slight change in the agenda, what's the wish of the planning commission this evening?
Now I'll move that request 2016-2797 be approved.
Motion by Commissioner Badger,
Second.
second by Commissioner Volnick.
Mr. Badger?
Yes.
Mr. Halter?
Yes.
Mr. Prohl?
Yes.
Mr. Volnick?
Yes.
Councilman Hellinger?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Mansours?
Yes.
Chairman Simpson?
Yes.
Gee, Mr. Badger, you picked up the missing D in determine and you didn't see this. Good grief.
Well, not perfect, just damn good.
Man, it's getting to be like an Orioles Red Sox.
Are we-
A little chippy. I'm not sure I want to give my
Are
report.
we good for the report now?
Yeah, thrown behind batters and stuff. Lance, you want to give a little preview of next month? We have quite a few cases and potential cases coming.
Right now, we have 2 cases coming forward. Communities, Glen Ross, Section 11, portion south of Cheshire, that's the Landominiums coming in for a final subdivision plat. I think it's only half of that, of all those Landominiums. And also Belmont Place, Section 4 and 5, which is the remainder of Belmont Place, final preliminary development plan, final development plan, preliminary subdivision plat, final subdivision plat. I think there's 72 lots that would be included in that. There's a couple other cases that are pending.
And that'll take Belmont to the wood line there?
Yes.
To the property line.
Correct, yeah.
To the north. Yep. Yeah, we if you recall, as part of the last finals for phases 1, 2, and 3, actually, as part of that, we did a conceptual review with you and council for these phases as well. But I think it got that conceptual review got a little bit lost in the final reviews we were doing. But to finish it out, so you've seen it before, at least in concept form.
All right.
That's all I have, sir.
That's it. All right.
I'm sure you'll have some questions.
I'm sure.
Maybe not.
Commission member comments and discussion. We'll just start down there and work our way around.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I do have one thing. The planning zoning workshop, you got the email from Elaine, so we have two, okay, who have indicated they want to come, so we'll sign you up if we haven't already. I think we've already signed you up for that, at least start the PO for it. If anybody's interested, this is about the last call in the next couple of days, so we can come and we'll pay your registration, so just let me know. Now I'm done, I promise.
All right.
I just wanted to say I'm really pleased with the way the process of this Coughlin crossing has gone and the way everybody worked together. And when it got here tonight, it sailed right through like it should. And I just hope we can keep doing. And I think it's starting with Tree Plus or whatever the name of this was tonight. So I think that's a good process.
I'll let you know next week or two if I can make that June 1st meeting.
June 7th.
So,
7th?
By the way, I will not be here at the June meeting.
okay.
If it's
It's the 7th, right?
Yes.
Oh, is it 7?
7th.
Oh, okay. I'm probably fine. Sometimes those numbers look the same. That's it.
That's it?
Nothing tonight.
All right.
Has anything crossed your desk on that Rodman property on Halp Road?
We've had a couple of meetings with Mr. Rodman and his potential development team, and a couple of 2 or 3 different versions of concepts, and we're working through issues. We've indicated that they should go talk to the neighbors as well. There's a number of neighbors there, some of whom are not in the city. They've done that on at least one occasion, maybe 2, and are obviously got floodplain on that property and slope, and there's an existing pond, so there's grade. There's a lot of things to think about, but we're conceptually talking about a mixed-use development there too that site could carry. I mean, there's a limited amount of development that site can functionally carry, but they're not even forward to like a formal concept plan at this time.
I didn't know, but he sent a letter out one time.
Yeah, I think that was part of those initial meetings, so you probably got it as
He never put a date on it, a date or a time.
Put a time on
He didn't put a
He
time.
didn't put a
Yeah.
time on it. Makes
Yeah.
it difficult to attend the meeting.
Yeah.
He reached out. and
He
didn't
noted
show up.
that in our meeting with him, and he apologized for that. I couldn't believe he forgot that, but he still had a number of people attend that, even though it didn't have a date and time. So I think the word got around the neighborhood, maybe not to you.
I just wondered whether anything was, so he's still just a concept. Right?
Yeah, looking at some
And that's a
residential.
difficult piece of-
Yeah, looking at some residential, maybe some small office up near the Halp Road. Kind of fit it all together, but it's still very conceptual at this point.
Okay. That's all I got.
George? Not a thing.
Are you saving up?
I am. Wait till June.
Nothing from me. We're good.
All right. I don't really have anything either. Good job to staff tonight on presentations and
Absolutely.
preparing everything. And
These guys working hard.
And I have to be honest, I was really excited to see that there wasn't a lot of public in here to talk about Coughlin's Drive. I feel like maybe this is an example of how to do a development the right way. So the next regular meeting again is on June 7th, 2017. If you can't make it, make sure you let Elaine know. Obviously, you've already told us you're not going to make it. If you change your mind, we'll be here.
I'm on the beach, I'm not coming back.
And with that, we're adjourned. It's 8:34.
Get it out. I left a blood charger in my office.
Oh.